Hey folks, ACCG here, and in today's video we've got another One Piece card game deck profile, and today we're going to be covering one of the tier 1 decks in the meta, definitely, in the form of Kinemon. So yeah, I recently played this at a local tournament, and I don't want to really spoil what the results were because I'll be uploading some of the gameplay from those, but I really enjoyed playing the deck. I learned quite a lot from playing it just on that first playthrough, and I'll talk through some of those ideas and why I decided to run some of the things that I did run. So if you don't know what Kinemon actually does, this is it really. It's 5k, 5 life, which is always good. We like to see when you hit with that 4 life, like in lore, it can hurt. So having the 5 is really nice. And then the active main effect is once per turn, if you have 1 or less characters, so you can have 1 or 0, the next time you play a land of 1/0 type character card with a cost of 3 or more from your hand during this turn, the cost will be reduced by 1. So immediately, just like a quick caveat that people pointed out at locals for me, one thing to get into the good mindset when using Kinemon effect is, at the start of your turn, look at your board, look at your hand, see what the situation is. If you have 1 or less characters out, you can then immediately declare, I'm going to use Kinemon's effect, and then at any point during the turn when you use the land of 1/0 type, that cost is going to be reduced once. And that's good to know and good to keep in mind, because it can be difficult keeping on top of making sure that you're not flooding your board with characters and stuff. So yeah, really nice to keep in mind, and yeah, a really good tip for Kinemon players, so that you can utilize the effect of Kinemon. But yeah, let's get into the actual start of the list. This list is running quite a lot of 1-drops. We've got 4 Monosuke here, so I'll just go ahead and show you what Monosuke does. It's absolutely ridiculous, to be honest. So it's a 1-drop with a +1 counter, 0 power, which you may be thinking, wah, but this card is used for utility. Activate main 1, so you rest it, pay 1, and you get to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and add a land of 1/0 card from them to your hand, put the rest at the bottom of the deck. So it's like a Nami, but with an additional cost. But the difference is that this is an on-playability. If Momonosuke stays around, then it's going to be a problem for your opponent. So yeah, we run quite a few blockers in this list as well, so there's just additional ways that you can loop the value of Momonosuke. And then speaking of value, we also have Bonnie here. So this is Jewelry Bonnie, running 4 of her. And she has a very similar effect, but instead of looking for land of 1/0, she looks for supernovas. So similar effect. This has 1k over the Momonosuke, but yes, both very good, especially because we're running a lot of land of 1/0 cards and we're running a lot of supernova cards in the list. Next up, for more 1-drops, we're running big ol' Captain Gang Beige. It's just a 1-cost blocker. There's times in this list where you're just going to need to defend some of the characters that you have out, and yeah, it's nice to have the beige, to have the blocker, and yeah, even though it has no defense, it is defense in its own way. It feels really cheeky sometimes when you just block and your opponent's swinging for 9k with a big thonk. Yeah, pretty good. And then for the last of our 1-drops, we are running the Tokis, the Kazuki Tokis. A lot of lists are running 3 of this. I'm only running 2 of it. I think it's good, similar to beige, but it does have the requirement, instead of, if you have a Odin character, this gains block instead of just having block, but it also has +1 counter, which is obviously different than beige. So I'm liking that at 2. I might bump it to 3. There's a few cards that I'm still deciding numbers on, but for now, 2's done me well. Next, we can go into some of the 2-drops here. We have Scratchman Apu. This is one of our 2+ counters. Yeah, the majority of the time I'm actually just using this as a 2+ counter, but I did have some matchups in just playtesting where I'm playing against a deck that's going to be using events defensively, and Apu has the ability of Don X1, when attacking, rest up to one of your opponent's Don cards, which is nice to just be able to shut down those event plays, and that could have been the only way that they were going to survive. So yeah, quite nice. Running for that mainly because it's the +2 counter, but also it does have a little bit of utility in the actual deck, which is always a benefit. Next up, we have Killer, another blocker. You're going to see quite a few blockers in this deck, really. This is one of the better ones. So it's a 2-cost with 2k power. It has counter +1, which is nice. Has the blocker ability just straight up, and then has the Don ×1 on block effect of, if you have 3 or more characters, draw a card. So effectively, you can just like trade this out from your hand by having it as a blocker, but then also it can add cards to your hand, filter through your situations, and you can just plop it down. And if you don't find utility for the block on the turn that you do, the next turn you could like throw a Don under it. There is the obvious play to just pop it down and then put a Don under it, but that turns it from a 2 to effectively a 3 cost card then. So yeah, there's utility. It's nice as just a basic blocker, but also if you get that draw effect going off, it definitely feels good because of the added value from Monosuke and Bonnie as well. And the last of our 2-drops is a word that I'm I'm gonna just completely butcher, so I'm just gonna go with Neko. This is kind of a flex spot. I think this is one that you could drop. It's not critical to the actual game plan, but it can be really helpful offensively and defensively sometimes. So it's a 2-drop with counter +1. It's got 3k power, which is actually nice for a 2k, and the on-play of rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 3 or less. So utility for me when using this was in the early game, playing against some decks where, like, say I've just gone into turn 2, I can drop this and then swing out whatever I've rested with my big old Kinemon, which is nice, and there is that benefit to that. But there's also the other good utility for it, because it can rest a 3 cost 3 or lower. You can rest like a Beige, the Togi, any even killer. Like, you can rest any of your opponent's small cost blockers, which really helps sometimes when they've just like flooded the board. For example, if you're playing against Law and they're like dropping the choppers and stuff like that, just being able to play this and just go rest that's one less, basically just like completely like shut down some of your opponent's defense, which does come in. I like 2 of it. I think 2 is perfectly fine. I wouldn't run more personally, but that's a decision. One of the best cards in the deck, coming on to our 3-drops, is Okiku. So this is one of the cards that kind of makes people go, ooh, Kinemon's a bit nasty. So because of Kinemon's effect, if you have gone second, you can reduce the cost of Okiku to 2, and that means that you can play Okiku turn 1. And the reason that is kind of scary is because Okiku has the ability of Don times 1. When attacking, once per turn, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a 5 or less. It's maximum control, and yeah, it's really scary. It's the speed at which you can get it out, and it can just really help you stay on top of the control aspect of the game that you want to be playing using Kinemon. So yeah, definitely for Okiku. The only like downside is that it doesn't have any plus counter, so you got to keep that in mind if you're drawing dead. Yeah, good card though, very, very good. And another very good card in the 3-drop slot is Izo. So this is another +2 counter for us. It's a 3-drop with 3k and the on-play ability of rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. So the reason that the Izo is better than the Neko is, one, it's a +2 counter, so that's obviously good in your hand, but there are a lot of like 4 cost blockers in the meta, or just 4 costs like powerful cards. For example, if I'm playing against black, I'm pretty sure I can rest is it Kuzan 4? I think Kuzan's a 4-drop. Play Izo, rest Kuzan, deal with something on my opponent's board, basically. Yeah, like Izo, very, very good. The 2 cost does definitely help. And this is Ryuzo. So this is actually a card that I haven't been able to utilize enough yet, and it's one of the ones that I'm on the fence about dropping. I can see it coming in handy in times when you're like low on hand, but I haven't been able to actually like gain too much benefit from it myself personally, but I think it has good potential. So it's a 3 cost with 4k power, +1 counter, which again we want. We have a few cards in here that have no plus. And then when attacking, once per turn, if you have 2 or more rested characters, draw 1 card. Yeah, can help if you've had to flood the board. Can definitely help, and can help you just like gain that tempo advantage against your opponent. That's why I'm keeping it at 2 for now. There are a few like things that you can switch around, drop the Ryozo for another Neko maybe, or the Tokis and stuff. But for now, we'll move on. Next, we have another utterly disgusting card in the deck, Yamato. So this is, I think this is, this is our only 4-drop. It has 6k power. It has the ability that it's also treated as a Kazuki Oden, which is important for the Toki. And the on-play ability of rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 6 or less. Disgusting. Just being able to go like, on play, rest, and then like, for example, use our next card to just like KO it because it's rested, or swing into it with your big powers is, yeah, it's really, really strong, definitely for Yamato. And this is the other card that I was mentioning there. This is X-Drake. So it's a 5 cost, +1 counter, which is nice, 6k base, which is chunky, and the unplayability of KO up to one of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 4 or less. So you can see quite a lot of combo here. We can use the Izu, use the Nico, use the Yamato to rest your opponent's cards, and then you can X-Drake said card and just immediately get like removal without having to waste an attack on a rested card. Very good. I'm liking 2 of it so far. I might drop a Raizu for another one of this. I really like the control aspect of just unplay, deal with something. But a 5 drop is quite high, and we already have some big beaters. And you can't say big beta without talking about Mr. Odin here. So this is the Odin that came out in OP02, and OP fits quite well because this card is pretty darn bonkers. So it's an 8 cost, which can be made a 7 cost with Kinemon's effect. It's got 8k power, which is chunky, and the activate main ability of once per turn, you may pay 3 to set this card as active. Yeah, that's nutty. It's effectively like the Kid Leader ability, but in a character, which is, yeah, just crazy. And then it has the on-KO ability, as if it needed one, of play up to 1 green Land of Wano type character card with a cost of 3 from your deck, and then shuffle your deck. So yeah, it's really cool, because you just go like swing, swing, and then on the backlash, your opponent has to put a lot in to get rid of this, and then you can just play like an Okiku, or you can play an Izo. Yeah, crazy. Good. Very nice. Definitely like the Odin. And then the last of our big beaters that we're running is the Eustace Captain Kid. So there is another 8-drop Kid that you can run. I haven't tried it yet. I think the meta currently has quite a lot of like control and abilities and ways to deal with the other 8-drop Kid. But this Kid definitely has come in useful for me in my testing. It's a 7 cost with 7k power with blocker and the Dawn ability at end of the end. Dawn ×1 ability, end of your turn, set this card as active. So you can swing with it, and then if it's X1, you can restand it, basically. So it can be an attacker and a defender, which definitely comes in useful. This was probably my biggest helper to saving the Momonosuke's. So yeah, definitely like this. And finishing off, so we've got 4 cards left. Here is 3 of them. Looking at our event cards, we've got Punk Gibson. So Punk Gibson is yet another nutty card in the deck. It's a 2-cost counter, and with the ability of up to 1 of your leaders or character gains plus 4k until the end of the battle. Classic event, really, for defense, but then rest up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less, stopping potentially even more attacks. But it also has the trigger ability of rest up to 1 of your opponent's characters, which, yeah, enough said. Your opponent swings into your life, you pop it, and then you go, oh, just rest, I haven't lost the game. Very nice, we like it. And then finishing off the list is Paradise Waterfall. So, because I'm new to the TCG, I didn't actually realize that counter was like specific counter timing for like when you're being attacked. So I was like, oh yeah, I can just restand my cards. No, this is a defensive card, but it's still really good. So it's a 1 cost with the counter ability of up to 1 of your leaders or characters gains plus 2k power during this battle, and then set 1 of your characters as active. So you can defend yourself and set like your kid as active again so that you can reblock. It also has the trigger ability of KO up to 1 of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 4 or less. So not as impactful potentially as being able to rest something, but a nice bit of removal to be able to not have to deal with something next turn so that you can hyper focus on other things. So that is the Kinemon deck profile. Let me know if you're going to try it out. Let me know any changes that you're thinking. I really want to start boosting like my comment section. I really like talking to my community. So yeah, let me know how you're feeling and have a great day. Thanks.